Let's skip the introduction and proceed straight to our structural details. The tags, the structural details, and the schedules. Because structural engineering is a studied or a profession that has to be learned, not in one day only. Here we'll just tackle a little bit of information, but focus mostly on drawing it in layout. So as you can see, they might not be to scale or the exact dimensions, and that's the use of our callouts. Okay, let's start first with the tags. Tags are the indication of which callout is located in the drawing. Our first tag, let's call it the GB or the grade beam. For this, you can just use your text or letter T. Open the layers panel. Click on tags. Since I have deleted the tags in the previous video, I'm going to add it here again. Tags. Now I won't place it as part of the structural layout because I don't like it to get mixed with the drawings. But of course that's personal discretion again. So double click, call it GB for grade beam. This basically means the beam on the grade or on the ground. Because I'm having a hard time trying to locate it to center, it's not really something to fuss about, so I just turn off the object snap by right-clicking the paper space. This way I can freely move around. I'm also a bit annoyed by the text alignment, so I'm going to open the text style and justify it to the center. Let's say I want some kind of font for that, just so that it stands out a bit more. However, since my beams have patterns, I guess I'll decide to put it above. So that's actually just your personal drafting discretion. And I'll proceed to do the rest. Let's say for this grade beam here on the edge, it's a little bit smaller than the rest, so I can call this grade beam number 2. Now, because I placed the number 2, would I have to put GB1 all throughout the others? Not really, because that can serve as your main grade beam. So, you could also choose to right-click and make it as a group, so that when you try to copy it later on, it just takes one click to select them all. Go inside the group if you need to edit some annotations again. Now we're done with the tags of grade beam. We can also make tags for our main beam. So you could call this MB for main beam, or others they just call them beam number 1. So I guess that's what I'm going to do. Instead of writing everything again and locating it, I could just edit the text boxes and press B1. This is an edge beam. Let's say that these cantilever beams, CB, are holding the balcony, and they might have a different dimension than B1, as well as the beam by the stairs, also supporting the comfort room. We can call them B2. These tags are important so that we could see the sizes in our schedule and callouts. So I'm just holding down Control, dragging it, and sometimes holding Shift. So instead of focusing much on how to draw, you could practice more also on how you navigate and use your shortcut keys. Alright, for many other structural drawings, you could have some reinforcing bars on the corners or around each post as your detail. In this case, I'm going to say it's a suspended slab, or I'm gonna call it a steel deck with so I have to change the pattern as well, because this is a pattern of reinforcement. Oh, in this case, I guess in our scrapbook we did not use pattern. Pattern would be a much more effective way of showing a call out. Material symbols. What's the pattern for steel? Sheet metal for roofing. Steel. I guess let's use this so that it coincides with the name here. And arrange this forward. Bring to front. The reason why that does not go to the front is because our tags are in the topmost part. Maybe I'd want to see this. This is layout though. Okay. This is part of layout then. And then bring to back. So I'm just paraphrasing here. This might not be the exact technical term for the drawings on your project. But I know that this is the stairwell, so I have to indicate it as open just by making an X. Let's make the line weight a little bit thinner. 0.2 and copy the same font. What font have I used here? Verdana. Okay. Alright. Now we have to proceed to the tags on our next page. I guess this is a cantilever beam as well. So if this is a cantilevered beam, then this should be an edge beam. However, oh, okay, it's not cantilevered because it's resting on load-bearing walls here. Next to our roof deck framing plan, we're gonna call it the roof beam or RB. So text RB. I don't like to do the whole process of, putting it to the middle and stuff again, so I'll just get this, copy, paste, and just copy that style. I guess this should be the edge beam as well. This would be the roof beam. Let's turn off that SketchUp model. This will be the same as beam number 2 below. Beam number 2. In this case, I'm thinking that the roof beam is actually the same size. So we can actually call this B1 as well, because a roof deck is basically another floor. Okay, so that's B1. And let's just call roof beam for the roof here. Let's go. B1. B1. Is this cantilevered beam? I guess not. So I'll call that B1 as well. Just rotate it upwards, hold down shift to lock instead of typing it in. Technically, this can also be a cantilevered beam if you have a balcony there. But it doesn't matter if your schedule has the same size, because that is a label issue instead, not a size issue. So it's for terminology. Of course, it has to be accurate in technical terms, but when they construct it, especially here in the Philippines, as long as they understand and it's according to the structural analysis, then it's acceptable at times. I have to check if my stairwell is the same, so I'll turn that on. And I see that this actually has a slab. This is the only hole in the stairwell. So that was wrong. I have to outline that floor slab. Turn off the fill. And when we turn that SketchUp floor off again, you could actually see the outline of the slab. I'm going to copy that detail for a slab. Guess I'll put it here so that they know that this is part of the slab. And then it's time to make that. Could do it like this. And just label open below or stairwell. So things that you could not really explain in drawing, don't worry, because there are words to back them up. Like example, this is a tree. And then they will ask, oh, what kind of tree is this? Looks like a lollipop. Then you just have to add a table. It's like a shrub tree, whatever that means. Oh, it doesn't look like a tree because it's not green. Then you can put green tree. So that differentiates us from the fine arts when it comes to design detailing, because we can actually describe it with written words. So some descriptive specifications. Don't worry also, you'll have to put the label of your columns. So if all my columns are the same, I could call them C, but I don't want to mix these tags with the beams, so I could choose to group them first and deselect the ones I don't need. Right click, make group, so all the beams are here in tags. And my columns can be right click, make group as well, so I can start labeling them. For now, we don't see much difference, but later on, if you need to change something, this is a very helpful tag, especially if they're grouped like this. So that's column 1, Let's go back and copy paste that. Let's say our columns maintain the same height. However, are you sure there is a column here though? If we're going to check our SketchUp model, let's say double click. Yes, there's one here. There's one on the edge. There's nothing in the middle. So they are on the corners. According to the design of this box house, then that's all reinforced hollow block. So I have to. If I delete this though, it will look like that. Okay. So I could maybe just make it a very, very thin line to indicate it's a column below. And I'll delete that tag so they won't get confused. They might think a column is protruding here up to the section line, which is false. We'll turn off the fill, I mean. There, so it's much more visible and understandable now that columns are on the corners and these beams are continuous. Okay, so what do we tag next? We already have our beams, our columns, the footing, of course, yeah. So maybe I will choose to place them on the lower right of each footing. Okay. For these combined footing, I'll call it footing number 1 or F1. Same with the other combined footing because they have the same size and orientation. Right click, make group, go inside that group, copy and do it again. So for this isolated footing, I'll make it F2 as they have a different orientation and design from F1. There. So some of you might think, why don't I just do text F2, text F2? Of course, that's your discretion, but I find it faster just to group them and select, copy, and paste. So everything that we have tagged right here will be falling into our structural details. Alright, let's check that. Steel deck, copy. Okay, we have that. So how is this roof framing plan then? Since this is a 3D model, you could choose to detail it further here, but it might take some time, and that is for the next course. So what you could do is you could press layout and draw details over it. Well, don't worry because you have the scale drawing and you know that your scale is 1:75. So for example, you could trace it and you can make an offset to depict the gutter. But these gutter offsets, we don't really need to customize them as there are standard sizes available in the hardware. What they really want to see here though is how the frame is. Example, if you placed a sloping roof, you could press the offset and make this into rafters, and right afterwards you can place your your valleys and your ridges. It's just like manual drawing. Then right afterwards you can place your channels or your C-purlins. So you could go as detailed as that, but according to my 3D, this is a very simple roof. It's just flat. So I guess we'll just be using angle bars inside the scaled group. So I'll draw a line first. I plan to make copies of this going to the right. So I could make a copy, control, and then just drop it anywhere and place the dimension. Let's say the spacing will be 1 foot or 0.3, enter. And I'll see how much 12 copies can make. So 12x, enter. Maybe 2 more, so 14x, enter. And let's see if it's, oh, it's exactly spaced equally. Okay. So you remember what we talked about and making details. Okay, this is what we call the cutter, the split tool. So just click. It's just like trimming in AutoCAD. However, I don't find the shortcut here yet. Okay. Since I want to emphasize that the outer frame, let's maybe say that this is a bigger angle bar. I can make the thickness bigger. Bring to front. Okay, so it has a fill. Disable the fill. I found out that they're not actually connected. So double click or here and try to join them together. Okay. I guess this is okay. I don't have to go both ways. If my roof is facing this way, then this can serve as a very minimal framing. Unless, of course, I still want to put some rafters and make this the purlins. So since this is a bit confusing, and let's say I made a design that I want them to follow, I could make a section cut and plan view by using that pattern. I remember we have something called sheet metal for our roofing. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's say I'll turn on the fill, make something like this. And turn on the stroke. Maybe rotate this 90 degrees. There. Just to indicate that this is the pre-painted, let's say, gray metal sheet roofing or color roof. Again, that's up to you, up to your discretion, and you can make the, let's say, 1 by 1 angle bar, 2.5 millimeter thick. These are not real dimensions, so just follow the label text. Call this the edge frame, which will be the 1 by 2. Let's make it thicker. Of course, that's inches. Angle bar, and then the thickness of the bar, which is 2.5 millimeters. And then later on, once you start canvassing, you can see that you can just easily change the sizes. Of course, if you have it in your 3D, these are just auto text. As well as this kind of framing, if you want it the other way, at least you can easily just go back and do it over again. However, I guess if we have the sheet metal, let me try something for a moment. What if I just make the sheet metal trace over it? It's the same orientation, but I'm curious if it will have the same spacing. So if I put my scale 1.2, or I guess 2, nope, 1.5, 1.3. So around 1.3, that's almost a 30 centimeter spacing if you just want to use this. So instead of, drawing all of these, what you could do, I'm just showing an example, is to just make a pattern hatch for this. And you'll have the same look. And then you can just place here, spaced at 30 centimeters. Yeah. So that's one way if you're super duper rushing. But if you were to put dimensions, this one has information. That's what we call information drafting or information modeling as compared to just 2D visualization, which makes it design, of course. It's not just an art, it's also a science. Alright, so let me have my coffee for a while. Take a break before we go to the other details.